Hello everybody, my name is Sarah Cray and I teach watercolor, and today we are doing our Restless Waters project.
Ooh, angsty.
We have Michael here working the cameras.
Hello.
And I am just so grateful to be here with you today. Sometimes I just have to take a step back and just be... I really like my job and I love that I get to teach you guys watercolor, and I'm so grateful that you guys are here to paint with me. It's really the best time and I'm just so appreciative, so thank you. We are going to be doing this project in 6 steps. So our very first step is we're going to put in our sand. Our second step is we're going to put in our first layer of water and our foliage. Our third step is we're going to do another layer of water and another layer of sand. Our fourth step is we're going to put in our rocks. Our fifth step is another layer on our water. And the sixth step is just any finishing details.
But what about the fifth? Stay up.
Is that what I said?
Stay up.
Stay up. I can never say fifth step.
What kind of accent is that?
Correctly.
Where are you from?
The Sarah Cray accent. Okay. I am using 3 paintbrushes for this project. So I have my round 2, my round 6, and my round 12. I am going to get a clean piece of paper towel because that one's pretty damp. And the paints we're using is actually a curated palette that I picked out from Art Philosophy that they kindly put together for us. And those colors are Sassfrass, Jellyfish, Shadow, Sourwood, Crabapple, and White Mocha. It comes in this little travel case, so you can actually take this with you wherever you go. And actually, when I do little trips, usually I'll take a case like this. So then I have my paintings with my paints with me.
Is that little ring on the bottom so you can wear it on your hand?
It's so you can hold it. So if you do plain air painting, you put the ring on your hand like this, and it stays.
Amazing.
And you can go, oh, look
you
at
can
me.
look real artisty.
I'm a real artist.
Wait. Everyone at home, you're welcome in advance. Sarah, go ahead and say I'm a real artist with a British accent.
I can't do it. I'm not going to have British accents. You do it.
No, I know. I love your British accent so much. Please do it.
I'm a real artist.
Oh, man. Listen, with the amount of Downton Abbey you've watched, I'm surprised you're not.
I know. It's really embarrassing. I watch that show so much, and I cannot do an English accent to save my life. I'm embarrassed now. Okay, that's fine. We're friends here. Okay. So before we start painting, actually, let's do our oath, and then we'll get into it. So if you can raise your right hand and repeat after me. I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise not to compare my work.
I promise not to compare my work.
And I promise to have fun.
I promise to have fun. Oh, I missed that. I hit the bell, not the ringer.
Try again.
There we go.
Thank you. And sometimes when I say I promise to have fun, I don't mean that you have to be like, this is the best, but sometimes having fun is just the ability to laugh at ourselves. We're trying really hard, and sometimes I paint something and I'm like, what the? And then I just laugh, and it just lightens the mood and makes it okay to not be perfect at something. And I don't want perfection. I want you guys to be able to laugh at yourselves, because if you can have that attitude, then you can learn anything.
I should have made you do the oath in British.
You should have. Another day. Another day. Can't do it today. Okay, so as you can see, our paper is a 6x9. Our outline that came in your box is a 6x9 outline, so please cut your paper in half. If you want to have this gorgeous deckled edge, please refer to that video where I show you how to do that. So I've already did it. I transferred my outline and I'm ready to go. Now I want to just tell you that I approached this painting in the way of different art styles, and I was thinking about Monet and Impressionism, which is one of my favorite art styles. And I thought, I knew I wanted to do an ocean scene, but sometimes painting water is really tricky. And I was getting kind of in my head about it, and I was worked up because I really want to do a good job teaching you guys because I want you to feel successful. And then I thought, okay, wait a second. What if I approached this in the way that maybe Monet or Impressionist or Post-Impressionist would capture it, which is a bunch of different marks layered on top of each other to create the values and the colors and the textures. And it doesn't have to be smooth and perfect or realistic. This is one of those paintings that, as we say, looks better when you look at it from the road. Is that the saying? Isn't that like, looks good from the road?
Look,
That means
sounds
it's
good to
far
me.
away. It looks better from far away. That's where you're really going to see what it is. When you're painting inside of it, it's going to get easy to feel like it's not doing what you want it to do. So I just wanted to acknowledge I wanted the painting to feel like that. So that's how we're going to approach it. Okay?
Every time you say Monet, I want to go, Monet, Monet, Monet.
That's why we did our loyalty program.
Monet in the bank.
Monet in the bank. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to actually start with my round 12 for my first layer. And I'm going to do the sand and the water. But I just want to say, when we do the water, we're essentially going to do the dry brush technique for like all of it pretty much. So this is one of those projects where if you're not familiar with that technique, you're about to get familiar because that's what we're going to do. So let's start with the sand first. And there's a lot of lines going on, so I just want to clarify. This line right here is our sand line to this line right here. Okay, so we're working within this section. And if when you're painting, you mess up a line and you put the sand farther away, that's okay. Doesn't really matter.
Wait,
Okay.
Are those little lower wells on your palette
Here,
for holding paint colors and you're supposed to pull up to mix?
this.
Yeah, like you put a yellow in there and then a red in the next one and then you can like, I don't know. I'm just thinking, what are those marks for?
I don't know.
Okay.
I really don't know. I've been using this palette for a long time. I've never once asked myself that question. I'm so sorry. I don't know.
It's good.
You can see how my brain and Michael's brain works a little bit differently. He's always like, why is that happening? And I'm like, I don't know. Okay. We got some yellow.
I don't know, governor.
I don't know. I'm going to grab some red to get kind of like an orangey color. And then I'm going to add some white mocha. It's just going to kind of desaturate my colors here without super darkening the value. And maybe a tiny hint of the shadow, just to, okay? So I'm gonna start by just kind of wetting the entire area. I still have some color on my brush, but that's okay. And then I'm just gonna bring that color up to the top here. And then I'm gonna grab strong color and just go along this water line. Okay. And then here as well, this little edge, I'm gonna go along. Put that in there. I'm just gonna kind of smooth this out. If you wanna leave your wash, sorry, I keep not finishing my sentence. If you want to leave it like that kind of explosion texture, you can. And I'm looking at this and I'm recognizing that this sand already is way more saturated than my reference photo. So knowing that, looking at that, looking at my reference photo, I know that the next time I go in to touch my sand, I'm going to do a more desaturated tone. I'm not going to really do it right now. I'm just going to kind of let this be, see what it's like when it dries, and then react to it. It's really easy when something like immediately we're like, oh no, but instead I'm just gonna go, okay, well, I know that's a little bit brighter than I want it to be. I'm gonna let that dry, and then I'll just do a darker tone on top and appreciate that there are gonna be differences. Okay?
Cry later.
Cry later. That's what we said.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm gonna put in my water. So I'm gonna take some of this blue. I'm gonna add some yellow to it because I want it to be kind of like, ooh, too much yellow. I want it to be kind of like a turquoisey blue almost, but not like super green. There we go. That's a beautiful color. Oh, God, do you see that color?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's so good. Okay, and I'm going to start, and we're going to think about these waves kind of coming in. And usually on the white section of the wave, underneath it, it's always going to be a darker blue value. Think about how when waves come up, like this, there's still water kind of coming in underneath that. We got to account for that and make that a darker value. If you have no darker value and it's just a light blue, it's going to make it seem like the wave is shorter and more even on the same plane. So the darker the blue value is underneath the white section of the wave is going to create more of a difference in planes and will make your wave seem taller. And if you want your wave to seem soft and barely there, you're going to keep that blue value light. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I want it to feel like there's this curl coming in. I mean, this is a moody, there's rocks and is it flotsam and jetsam, this white bubbly stuff?
I don't know which is which, but yes.
One of them. And it's just like churning and all of that. So I'm going to start with this. What?
So animated today.
I know. I'm going to start with this dark blue here.
That is a great color.
Isn't it? It's just so good. I'm going to add a little water on my brush, and then I'm going to just kind of pull that color out. Okay? And then now is where I'm going to really start embracing the dry brush technique. So I'm hitting my 12 on my paper towel, and I'm just using the color that's there. And so with this dry brush technique, with this like new texture, we're allowing ourselves to let the white of the paper be the white of the foam. And then when we get to here, I'm trying to show that the wave depth is deep here, and then it softens and evens out over here. So that's why that blue value gets a little bit lighter. And then I'm not going to get too close, like this section that I kind of lined off, that is just white foam, wave foam. So as I get closer to that section, I want to make sure that my marks get a little bit like smaller and lighter, because that's where that blue water is meeting the heaviness of the wave.
You know those like patterny eye puzzles where you have to like look at them cross-eyed to see the picture?
Yes.
I watch you paint. I'm just staring at the monitor watching it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very aware that it was in different chunks and my eyes were like very focused, and I looked away briefly and looked back, and all of a sudden it like already looks like a beach scene.
Does it?
Yeah, just like looking away real quick, reset it.
Resetting your eyes is super helpful. Now I'm going to do the next chunk here, still using my 12, grabbing my blue. Now there is a wave coming, but it's not as strong as this first one right here. It's still kind of building up, which is why my blue value is not as dark. Okay? The other thing I want you to pay attention to is the angle of your brush stroke. Notice that I'm not doing horizontal lines. We're looking over the water and the current is coming this way. So I'm trying to match my brush stroke angle to that angle of the water and the current coming in. It's going to be easy for you to want to do this, but try not to do that as much because the marks are just going to get too similar. So try and remember to kind of lift up your brush. And let's say it's gone to the point where your brush is too dry and you ran out. You pick up more color and you just hit it on your paper towel.
All right, we got Michael's learning corner in session. You ready?
I'm ready.
Flotsam and jetsam are not that at all.
Great.
Okay.
Great.
They both refer to trash thrown overboard by a ship. One, flotsam, is debris that was not deliberately thrown overboard, like a shipwreck.
Okay.
Causes flotsam.
Okay.
Jetsam is like if your if your ship is sinking and you need to lighten the load, it's purposely thrown overboard.
Oh.
Jetsam.
I wasn't close at all.
Like you jettison it.
Okay, that's not this at all. Okay.
That's just foam? Sea foam.
This is just sea foam. I'm just trying to paint sea foam is what I'm trying to say here.
There may be some flotsam and jetsam in there. Who knows?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
We don't know.
We don't know.
Okay, and then when I get to this top section here, I want to call attention to the fact that in this area between these rocks, it is very, very white. So the blue is going to be a little bit more solid around this way. And that's because I'm trying to show we're getting towards all the rocky and the churning and the moving back and forth. So we need to lighten it right here. So I'm going to start with doing the dry brush technique around the rock on the left-hand side. And then when I get to the right hand, I'm going to make sure my brush is really dry. And actually, I'm going to switch to my 6 because if we're thinking about the ocean and the depth, we would see the larger chunks closer up, and then the marks would get smaller, the waves would get smaller, farther away. So let's switch our brush size. So then that's just an easy way that we can communicate that. I'm going to dry off my brush. Too much. Too much.
Listen, this is so fascinating. This goes deeper.
Okay.
Because really, you're like, it's just littering. Why does it matter what it's called?
Yeah.
Because most things on ships are valuable. And so, if it's flotsam, if it fell off on accident and someone finds it, you still own it. Like if Sarah Cray's boat, something fell off on accident and Michael Cray found it, you could come to me and say, like, hey, that's mine. That was flotsam.
Oh, okay.
Jetsam is fair game. If it was thrown overboard on purpose and a different person finds it, they own it and can sell it. Flotsam and jetsam.
But couldn't you just say, like, couldn't you just lie?
Well, I think the thing about ships is you're supposed to keep tight logs.
Oh.
But I don't know. I don't know how they
either.
verify that.
I mean, I don't condone lying.
Especially for flotsam and jetsam.
I'm just saying. Okay, that is our first layer. We're going to do multiple layers here. So I don't want you to feel like at this stage it should feel done. It should not feel done. It's not ready for that stage yet. And I want to call attention to my sand. I had the like bloomy edge right here happening. And I really love how that turned out actually. It's like really lovely. And the color doesn't seem as saturated as it did when I first put it down. So I'm glad that I decided to let it wait before I like mess it all up. And sometimes that's just part of it where you're just like, I don't know about that, but why don't I give it a minute to figure out what it's doing before I mess with it.
Let it breathe a bit.
Let's let it breathe a bit. Okay, now I'm going to put in my green foliage here. Now, if you guys can't tell, this is pretty much like a drone view almost of a beach shore. So this is like a grassy area, but it's still far away, so there's not a lot of detail here. So I just want to put in that it's green. And this kind of light value here, that was accidental. That was just kind of wet on wet technique. And I want you to embrace that because whatever it turns into, we could be like, oh, that was a path, or that's really rocky there, or you know what I mean? Like, sometimes just letting it be loose interpretations is nice. I'm adding a little bit of red to my blue and yellow mixture to desaturate the green. Because again, I want this to feel moody.
We have an 11-year-old. We're aware of that.
Moods?
Moody.
Moody.
Yeah. Moody and broody.
And then you can drop in just a little bit of yellows and blues. And kind of put that in there. Do kind of an uneven edge. And then I like to, I mean, we might be really wet here, but I like to just drop in water. Or if it's getting too wet and you can't get any values out, just lift some color out, put it on your paper towel, but keep it loose. Don't overthink it. It's just a grassy knoll area. It's not a knoll.
In our 11-year-old's defense, I was a moody 11-year-old. I'm still moody.
Who isn't moody? As long as I get some chocolate, though, I usually do better.
That's right.
Okay. So that was step 2. Now we're going to move on to step 3. We're going to go back in and do another layer on our waters. So if you want to keep working with your round 12 on your water, you can. Or if you want to switch to your 6, that is fine too. So I still have my blue here. And I'm just going to do another layer in a slightly darker value. So again, I'm kind of taking this, it needs to be a bit darker than that. Okay. Taking this, drying off my brush so it's still that kind of rough texture. Actually, I am going to switch to my 6 because I just don't want an even coat on that. Just trying to get a good, there we go. So just dry brushing. Again, there's not a lot of rhyme or reason to it.
It's too bad you're not Russian. You could call yourself the dry brushing Russian.
Good. That would be pretty cool. Okay. And then on this right hand side, let's put in a little bit more of this dry brush here. I'm still staying pretty close to kind of like that wave line. Okay. And then I'm going to go into this area a little bit more, this kind of white foamy area. And I'm going to make sure I'm using a light value of blue. I don't want to use as dark as I've been doing. I almost want like a barely there color. So I'm going to mix a little bit of this white into that. And using your 6, just kind of working into that white area, using this barely there color. Because we're thinking, yes, this is like thick white foam, which is why so much of it is, there's so much there, but in the areas where that kind of meets the more blue of the water, there needs to be a little hint of water underneath there, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then when I get more towards this side, this is where my brush strokes are getting more kind of horizontal. Okay. And now the next chunk, mix just a darker value blue, using your 6. And sometimes I like to like swoop and then go on the tip of the brush so I get different textures here. And sometimes a good scribble is actually a really great way to do the dry brush technique, because then it's less likely that you will have such similar marks. Okay. And now we're going to do the same thing on that third section. Remember, most of the blue is going to be on the left-hand side. And kind of where it meets that rock. There we go. And then smaller marks to let more of that white paper show through. And sometimes I like to do kind of more of a turquoisey color on some of the thinned out water. So I'm going to take a little bit of yellow and mix that with my blue. And then throw in some white or add water in there just to lighten up that value. And remember, if ever you put in like a color that's just you don't like or a value that you don't like, you can use your paper towel and just kind of lift it right back up. And if you work quickly, then it will mostly disappear. Now, when I get to the top here, like before I was talking about the angle of the waves, but as water goes out, the angles change, right? Because there's depth and it's moving more this way. Up here, it's moving this way. It's going right on this beach. But as you get to the vastness of the water, you do have some coming this way, but you also have some coming that way, right? Because it's just a larger area that's kind of spreading out. So I'm doing angled brush marks this way, and you'll see that it's like chunk, and then it kind of starts to do this. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
So as you're putting in these marks, let your brush get a little bit more horizontal.
You ever got ocean water in your nose?
Yes.
Oh.
Okay, I'm going to go to my sand and kind of just darken up this area where that tide was coming in over that sandy part, making it a darker brown. So I added black, yellow, red. If you want to tone down the red, you can do a swoop of green. And then right underneath here, then I'm going to use water, blend it out all the way out until the second line on my outline. And if you want to drop in, like what I like to do is I like to swoop it, and then using that paint that's on my brush, I'll put that on the line because I want that edge to also be a little bit darker. Okay, and then using the color that I have, doing another little line on that sand. I feel like I need to do, I'm going to add some water to my sand and just do some texture on this big middle section, maybe not a lot. And you can, like, when I do dry brush, you can actually force the paint to go somewhere, or if you just keep pushing it towards it. So I'm trying to keep that darker value along that edge. Okay. And then if you can see on your outline where there's these little outcroppings of rock, I'm actually going to put in a little bit of shadow kind of right where that water is dragging the sand away from it. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to step 4. We're going to do our rocks. I'm going to do the same technique using dry brush, but I'm going to pay attention to the values. So on this right hand side, I'm going to use a dark brown, and then on the left hand side, it's going to be a lighter brown. And just using those two colors is going to give my rock some dimension. So let's start with the dark. I already have some beautiful brown mixed from the sand. If I want to make it, you can make it more red, yellow, I mean, whatever you want, really. Add some blue in there. Ooh, that's pretty. And add some green. I want to tone down the redness. I like a good, like, orangey rock. So then using my 6, I'm going to kind of follow this lip here and then wipe off my brush. And then just dry brush it out. Okay. And then the right hand side, I'm going to grab a little bit more yellow and some water. Put that in and then dry brush it out. Now these might be too strong of a value contrast. So I'm going to go in with a little bit of the darker brown and do some dry brush technique on the left. And you can let some white show through, but we don't want a ton of white because we don't want that to compete with what's happening on the ocean.
I gotta tell you, this entire time since we've talked about Flotsam and Jetsam, I've had Little Mermaid Ursula. Flotsam, Jetsam, now I've got her voice. The boss is on a roll. Stuck in my head, just on repeat.
Me too, actually. That was one of my favorite. That was my favorite princess growing up.
Those eels are, I think they're based off of a moray eel, I would guess. Have you seen one of those in real life? They're horrifying.
They are. They really are.
They're like all kinds of slimy and teethy that you don't want.
I feel like their eyes are like.
Oh my gosh, they're called sea wolves.
Always. Okay, so I feel good about that. I'm going to let that dry. And then using the same color, I'm just going to start putting in these little rocks here. Now, on the little ones, we're not going to have as much space or opportunity to do value changes. So don't stress too much about that. Just give the hint that they're there. And you can always add more rocks and outcroppings. Like this is your painting. And remember, we're going for a more impressionistic style. So just like give the hint of something being there. You know what I mean?
The impression, if you will.
Yes, the impression of something being there. And then when it gets like closer to the edge, I want to show that like the rock keeps on going underneath, but the water is kind of coming up and covering it. So we only get like hints of things here and there, you know?
Sarah and I found this little restaurant in this area that did crab rolls. Like in the vein of a lobster roll, it was just crab meat on like a really yummy white bun with butter. So good.
The food that we had when we went to this place, I mean...
That fish and chips too.
The fish and chips was unreal. The crab roll was unreal. I had the best fish taco of my life. Like...
When we go to new places, I like to see like, what do they fish in that area? Like they're not pulling tuna out of this place. They fish this specific kind of rock cod that are very ugly, but very yummy.
I mean, gosh, eating was one of my favorite things. Michael, we spent our time going to restaurants and eating and taking pictures of the water and then turning around of these gorgeous redwoods. And that's what we did. It was the best. Okay, I feel good about my rocks. I'm going to let those dry and see how they kind of pan out. And then I'm going to go back into my water and I'm going to do an even darker blue. And using my 6, do another layer of dry texture. Now this should be very dry marks that you're making here. Oh, I forgot to put the rocks there. That's okay. I'll put those in a second. And then start thinking about using just the tip of your brush for some of these darker values here. Wherever there's an area that just feels too even in value, and so you kind of just like half close your eyes and look. And so this is feeling pretty even. That's feeling even. That's feeling kind of even up there. So that's just a good place for you guys to kind of like look and see where can there be just a little extra hint of a darker value here or there. Add some darkness. And I kind of always love saying that, add some darkness. I know that's not like, I guess it just reminds me in my own life that it is normal to have periods where it feels heavy and periods where it feels like bright and light. If our life is smooth sailing all the time, always, then it just evens out, right? And so even though there are challenges and changes and things beyond our control that are really terrible, it's the both of them having the dark and the light is what makes it feel full. And so even in painting, it's just like it's a reminder to me whenever I add the dark parts that it makes the bright parts pop. It's just a little life reminder. Let's add some darker value up here. Just really. And remember, we're going to want to try and avoid, like, leave a white space around our rocks. You can't do that. We got to, like, get in there, let it get messy, because water is surrounding the whole thing, right? Now, in these little outcroppings, you're going to have more of the white because there's more of that water to run into things to create that white foam. Okay, and I feel like I want to take an even lighter value, a barely there color, maybe even mostly this white. Okay, and do a little bit more of this texture into the white foamy part. Okay. And then just doing a few like really dark value hints here and there. That might have been too dark. There we go. We're getting close. I can feel it.
Flotsam, jetsam, now I've got a voice. It's still just kicking around up there.
Okay, I'm going to switch to my 2 and I'm going to put in the rocks along my shore. I still have some beautiful brown on my palette. And I might go in and do a little extra shadow on that sand kind of coming out underneath the rocks. But let's put these in first. And if you want, the other thing that sometimes happens, if you think about water splashing up onto the shore, when it's barely there water and there's not a lot of foam, the water is actually clear. And the only hint that you have that there's water there is there's this white edge right at the top. And then it's kind of, you just see sand, and then it gets to like the heavy water part. So if you have, you can use the white here, and I'm just going to kind of clean out that color to try and keep it as white as possible. So I'm going to get this white and just like right along here, we're going to just do a little hint of white highlight as if there is a very thin layer of water kind of coming up and meeting that sand. Now this like white watercolor is fun, but it's not super opaque because it's watercolor, it's still transparent. So if you want it to really be like white, you can use like bleed proof white is a little bit stronger. You can even use like white acrylic. As long as it's just thin details and not a chunk, that's a good option. And then sometimes I like to go in with my white and just kind of like soften up some of the edges on this, like
spillovers.
Yeah, like the spillover of what's like breaking up such a strong line. Okay.
That makes a huge difference.
Yeah?
Yeah, that little spillover.
Yeah, it just makes it feel a little bit more natural. And then I'm going to take that same brown, water it down, and then just do a little bit stronger pull on these rocks. And I feel like I need some uneven green over here, like this. It's just a little bit too smooth, so let's go ahead and add And you're like, are these rocks? Are these green growths? Who knows? Doesn't matter.
Birds? Dead birds.
I'm going to just do a little bit stronger yellow wash right.
We've been married a long time. Were you there the year we saw a whale from the house?
That doesn't sound familiar, so it must have been your other wife.
My other, yeah. I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, whales are huge. You don't really know until you see one in real life. Whales are giant.
That would be my dream place of seeing them because I get motion sick really, really easy. And I found that out when my family went to Monterey and went on a boat to go whale watching. And it was the worst experience of my life. And I was very, very sick.
You are the most motion sick person I've ever met. You and our daughter Ella, she got that from you, poor thing.
I know.
But like, I feel like if you read too many billboards in the car, you're car sick.
Yeah, I can't read in the car. But they do have these motion sick glasses that I'm thinking of buying so then I can read in the car, but they look crazy. It's unfortunate. It's such a bummer, but that's actually how I found out. And then I'm so sad because we went to Hawaii and my mom's like, we should go whatever watching. And I'm like, never will I go on a smaller boat like that.
I forgot that you get motion sick, and I bought like a tour when we went to Mexico, like a little cute boat tour, and the whole time you're like, bull. But we got you some, we preempted it.
We did Dramamine, and that really helped. Okay.
Beautiful.
I think it's there.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, but this is also one of those, you're going to want to look at it from far away, look at it from the road to see how it feels, take a picture of it. Remember that you aren't, like, you're not supposed to be this close to it to be able to tell what's going on. Back away from it. And then if there's things that are distracting to you, you can make some adjustments. If not, when you walk away and you look at it and you're like, God dang, that's a beach with waves and lots of foam and I can tell, you know what I mean? Then like you did your job and you did it well. And I'm proud of you for stepping outside of your comfort zone to do a new kind of technique and to embrace the impressionist feel of painting. Should we do the reveal?
Absolutely should do the reveal.
It's the best part, especially with the deckled edge. When you peel your tape, you're going to want to work slowly, peel away from your paper at a 90-degree angle. Now, I will say that because we tore the edges, it is possible that your tape could catch on the more like thinned out fibrous edge. So just kind of be aware of that.
I love that sound.
Yeah.
Dang.
There it is. Isn't that fun?
So good.
Okay, I had the best time. Thank you guys so much for painting with me. I hope that you enjoyed this and you can see that just by doing loose brush marks and layering them, you can get a full out painting. There is value in this just as much as like a photorealistic painting, and anytime that you can explore different techniques and styles, I really hope that you do, because you don't know what you love until you try it. You don't know what you don't know, you know?
That's right.
Okay, if you are on Instagram, tag us at Let's Go Make Art. If you're on Watercolor, you can join our watercolor group. That's called Let's Make Art Watercolor. And I just want to hold it up one more time because I'm so proud of it.
It is amazing.
Okay, thank you guys so much for painting with me. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.